Ethan lived a quiet life in a small countryside house, far away from the noise of the city. The house was old, built of wood and stone, with creaking floors and narrow windows that always let in the smell of pine trees from the forest around. He liked it that way. Life was simple. The silence of the countryside had become his only companion. Most evenings were the same. He would return from work, put his bag down, heat up some leftover food, and sit by the window with a cup of tea. He liked to listen to the sound of the wind brushing through the trees, or the rain tapping gently on the roof. For Ethan, solitude was both a blessing and a wound. He had no family close by, no friends visiting. He had gotten used to being alone, but deep inside, he carried an emptiness that no routine could fill. That night, however, something broke the rhythm of his ordinary life. As he pushed the door open and stepped inside, he froze. A sound reached his ears, soft at first, almost like a trick of his imagination. It was the sound of running water. At first, he thought he had left the tap open before going to work, but a strange uneasiness ran through him. He never forgot to turn off the taps. Never. The sound was steady, coming from the bathroom at the end of the narrow hall. His heart began to beat faster. He lived alone. No one should be in his house. Slowly, cautiously, he stepped down the hall. Each step on the old wooden floor felt louder than thunder. His hand shook slightly as he reached for the bathroom door. For a moment, he considered turning around, leaving the house, and calling the police. But something pulled him forward, a strange mix of fear and curiosity. With a slow breath, he pushed the door open, and then the world he knew shattered. There, in the tub filled with warm water and steam, was a woman. Not a woman like any he had ever seen. Her skin glimmered faintly, not pale or dark but silver, as though tiny stars were trapped beneath her flesh. Her long hair floated softly in the water, glowing faintly like strands of living starlight. Droplets rolled down her arms, and even the water seemed to glow when it touched her. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. For a moment he thought he had walked into a dream. She was beautiful, but not in a human way. Beautiful in a way that made him feel both awe and fear at the same time. The woman turned her head slowly, her eyes meeting his. Ethan nearly staggered back. Her eyes were not human. They were wide, luminous, filled with swirling colors that reminded him of galaxies he had once seen through a telescope as a boy. They were infinite, endless, and yet full of sorrow. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The only sound was the steady drip of water from her hair and the pounding of Ethan's heart in his ears. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was soft, trembling, and carried an accent he could not place. "Please," she whispered, her lips trembling. "Don't send me back." Ethan's mouth went dry. He gripped the doorframe to steady himself. His mind screamed for answers, for logic, but nothing made sense. Who was she? What was she? How had she entered his locked house? Yet all he could see were her eyes filled with fear, desperation, and a plea that cut deeper than words. Who are you?" he managed to whisper, though his voice cracked. Her fingers clutched the edge of the tub tightly, as if the porcelain itself was her last anchor to safety. Her skin bore faint marks, thin scars, shaped like burns, stretching along her arms and shoulders. They told a story of pain, of suffering she had endured long before stepping into his home. "I cannot tell you my true name," she said, her voice shaking. "But I escaped. They will come for me. If you turn me out, if you send me away, I will die." Her words pierced him like ice. Ethan should have run. He should have called the authorities, or done something sensible. But he didn't. Something about her voice, something about the way her entire body trembled as she spoke, rooted him to the spot. It wasn't just fear he heard in her voice. It was something deeper. It was the sound of someone who had been broken too many times, someone who had reached the edge of despair and still found the strength to beg for one last chance. Ethan's heart ached. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about himself, his loneliness, or his empty life. He was thinking about her, this strange, fragile being who had somehow appeared in his bathtub, asking him for mercy. And though he didn't yet understand who she was or where she came from, one truth struck him like lightning. He couldn't turn her away. Ethan's chest rose and fell quickly as he stood frozen at the bathroom door. The woman in his tub, this strange, glowing being, kept her eyes on him. They shimmered with galaxies, yet they were full of pain. His first instinct was still to run. Everything about the scene screamed impossible. A silver-skinned woman with glowing hair didn't belong in his old countryside house. He should have been terrified, but strangely, what he felt most was a deep heaviness in his chest. Her trembling voice still echoed in his ears. "Don't send me back." The words wouldn't leave him. Ethan swallowed hard, trying to speak. Who are you? What are you doing here?" His voice cracked, half in fear, half in disbelief. The woman pressed herself against the back of the tub, as if even his voice might hurt her. Her arms tightened around her body and her eyes lowered. Ethan noticed how her hands shook and how faint burns ran across her wrists and shoulders. It looked like she had been bound, hurt, maybe even tortured. "I cannot give you my true name," she whispered. "It is not safe, but—" She looked up again, and for a moment he saw raw desperation in her face. "I escaped. They will hunt me. They always hunt. If you cast me out, if you make me leave this place, I will not survive." Her voice cracked, and Ethan felt his throat tighten. The way she spoke wasn't like someone lying or playing tricks. It was like someone who had begged for mercy before and been denied too many times. Ethan rubbed his forehead, his thoughts racing. "Escaped? From who?" The woman's lips trembled. Her voice was barely a whisper. "From my masters. They own us. They treat us as tools. We are not allowed freedom. I broke the chains. I fled through the stars. I found a way here. Please, just let me hide. Just for a little while." Her words fell like stones in his mind. 1,000 questions burned inside him, but none seemed important in that moment. She was here, in his home, begging him not to turn her away. He should have been careful. He should have thought about danger, about what it meant that something or someone was chasing her. But instead, he just looked at her, at the way her shoulders shook, at the silent tears slipping down her glowing cheeks. Something inside him softened. Ethan had been lonely for so long that he almost forgot what it was like to care. Yet now, standing before him, was a stranger who needed someone to believe her. He hesitated, unsure of what words would even make sense. "I don't know what's happening here, but I won't hurt you. I won't throw you out." Her eyes widened slightly, shimmering like glass under light. For the first time, a faint spark flickered across her face. Not a smile, not quite hope, but something fragile in between. "Thank you," she whispered, and the way she said it was like a prayer. Ethan moved slowly, careful not to startle her. He reached for a towel hanging on the rack and placed it gently beside the tub. "Here, you must be cold." She hesitated before taking it, her fingers brushing the fabric as if it were something precious. She wrapped it around herself, her glowing skin dimming a little beneath the cloth. Ethan sat down on the small wooden stool near the sink, running his hand nervously through his hair. His heart was still pounding, but curiosity was winning over fear. Why here? Why my house out of all the places on earth?" The woman looked at the floor. "I followed a signal," she whispered. "It was a broadcast from your kind. A sound filled with warmth, filled with life. I did not know what it meant, but it carried hope. I thought maybe the people who made it would be different." Ethan frowned. "A broadcast? What kind of signal?" Her lips trembled as she whispered the answer. "Music." The single word struck him harder than he expected. Music had drawn her here, some old radio signal, some song drifting through the stars. The idea was unbelievable, yet the way she said it was full of truth. Her body suddenly trembled again. Her glowing skin flickered, brightening and dimming rapidly, like a candle fighting against the wind. She gasped softly and clutched the edge of the tub. "What's happening?" Ethan asked, panic rising. "I need water," she whispered weakly. "This form cannot last long without it." Ethan didn't think. He leapt to his feet, grabbed the nearest jug and filled it from the sink. He rushed back and set it beside her. She touched the water with her hands, and instead of drinking it like a human, her skin absorbed it. The trembling slowed, her glow steadied, and her breathing grew calmer. She looked at him then, truly looked at him with eyes full of quiet gratitude. "You helped me." Ethan felt his chest tighten. No one had said those words to him in years. He didn't know why, but hearing them from her meant more than he could explain. For the first time in a long time, Ethan didn't feel alone, and, for the first time since she had arrived, the woman's lips curved into the smallest, most fragile smile. The night grew heavier outside, the forest whispering with wind, but inside the little countryside house, silence hung between Ethan and the strange woman who now sat wrapped in his towel. The soft glow of her skin lit the dim bathroom, and Ethan found himself staring, trying to believe that what he saw was real. Her breathing had calmed after the water, though she still looked fragile, like a bird with broken wings. Ethan sat on the wooden stool across from her, leaning forward slightly. His hands rubbed together nervously. He had so many questions burning inside him, but he knew if he pressed too hard she might break, so he started gently. "What should I call you?" he asked softly. Her eyes flickered with hesitation. For a moment, she seemed afraid to answer. Then she whispered, "Lyra. You may call me Lyra." The name felt delicate on his tongue, like a secret gift. "Lyra," he repeated quietly as though testing it against the walls of the room. She looked at him then, her luminous eyes wide. "And you? Who are you?" "Ethan," he said. "Just Ethan. I'm nobody important." Lyra tilted her head, studying him. "Nobody important?" She shook her head faintly. "To help someone who is hunted, to give water to someone who is dying. That is not nobody." The words pierced Ethan deeper than he expected. He looked away, embarrassed. For years he had lived as if he didn't matter, as if his quiet life in the woods was invisible. Yet here was a being from beyond the stars telling him otherwise. He cleared his throat, pushing away the weight in his chest. "Lyra, I need to understand. Why Earth? Why my home? Out of all places, how did you end up in my bathtub?" Her lips trembled as she answered. "I was running. There was no plan, only desperation. I slipped through a gate, a tear between stars. I followed something I had heard once, long ago. A signal. It was music." Again that word, music. Ethan leaned forward. "You mean a song? From here?" "Yes," she said, her voice soft, almost reverent. "A song full of longing. It carried more than sound. It carried hope. It was unlike anything my kind had ever known. I held on to it, believing that those who made such sounds could not all be cruel, that maybe, if I found them, I would find mercy." Ethan swallowed hard. He thought of his own nights when he played old records just to fill the silence in his lonely house. He wondered if it had been one of those songs, an old love ballad or a forgotten melody, that had traveled across time and space to reach her. The thought shook him. Something so simple, so human had given her courage to flee. But then he noticed her shivering. The towel clung to her thin frame, and the glow beneath her skin flickered faintly. She looked exhausted, like she could collapse at any moment. "Come," Ethan said softly, rising to his feet. "You can't stay in the bathroom forever. Let me get you something warmer." He led her gently to the living room where the old fireplace waited. With careful hands, he sparked it to life, feeding it small logs until the flames grew strong. Lyra sat on the couch, wrapping herself in the blanket he handed her. She stared at the fire, eyes wide, as if she had never seen such a thing before. "What is it?" Ethan asked. Her voice was hushed, filled with wonder. "It is alive. But it does not hurt me. It is warmth without chains." Ethan blinked, realizing what she meant. If her past was filled with fire that burned as punishment, no wonder she saw this simple fireplace as something miraculous. They sat there in silence for a while, the fire crackling between them. Ethan finally asked, "Are they coming for you?" Her body stiffened. Slowly, she nodded. "Yes. They do not allow escape. Every runaway must be punished, or others will believe freedom is possible. They will come for me. And if they find me here, they will see your world too." Ethan's stomach sank. His quiet life had turned into something larger than himself, something dangerous. But when he looked at her again, this fragile, trembling being who had risked everything for one chance at freedom, he knew he couldn't turn her away. "You can stay here," Ethan said firmly. His voice carried more strength than he felt inside. "I don't know what's coming, but until then, you're safe with me." Lyra's lips parted in shock. Her eyes softened, shimmering with tears. She whispered one word, a word so small yet so heavy with emotion. "Why?" Ethan held her gaze. "Because no one deserves to be hunted just for wanting to be free." The room fell silent again, but the silence was different this time. It was not empty, not lonely. It was full of something unspoken, trust, fragile and new, like the first flame of a candle in the dark. And for the first time, Lyra allowed herself to lean back, close her eyes, and breathe as if she truly believed she was safe. The days that followed felt unreal to Ethan. For years his life had been marked by silence and routine, but now every hour carried the presence of Lyra. She stayed hidden inside the house, always cautious, always quiet. During the day she rested, recovering her strength. At night, when the world outside was dark and still, she and Ethan would talk softly by the fireplace. He learned her ways were different from humans. She did not eat food, not in the way he did. She lived on water, absorbing it through her skin as if her body drank light and liquid at once. She moved with grace, yet often her hands trembled as if carrying old memories that refused to fade. Bit by bit, Lyra shared pieces of her story. Her world, she explained, was a place of endless chains. Her kind had been made to serve. They were bred, trained, and broken from birth. They were never asked what they wanted, only told what they must do. The marks on her arms were proof of that life, scars from bindings that burned whenever she disobeyed. Ethan listened in silence, anger burning quietly in his chest. He had known loneliness, but never such cruelty. Each word she spoke carved into him the truth that freedom was more precious than most people ever realized. One evening, as they sat together, eating soup he had cooked for himself while she soaked her hands in a bowl of water, Ethan noticed her stop suddenly. Her glowing eyes widened. She tilted her head toward the window, every muscle in her body going still. "What is it?" Ethan asked, his spoon frozen halfway to his mouth. Her lips parted, but no words came. She slowly raised a trembling hand and pointed. Ethan turned. Through the narrow glass window he saw it. At first it looked like a cloud passing over the treetops, blotting out the stars. But then he realized it was no cloud. It was a shadow of metal, vast and unnatural, moving silently above the forest. His heart dropped. It wasn't a plane. It wasn't anything human. The dark shape glided across the sky with terrifying calm, leaving no sound but a faint low hum that made the glass shiver in its frame. Lyra's face drained of color. Her hands shook so violently that the bowl of water spilled across her lap, but she didn't seem to notice. "They've found me," she whispered. Her voice was so weak it barely reached his ears. Ethan's body tensed. He forced himself to breathe, though every instinct screamed at him to panic. "Are you sure?" Her wide, tear-filled eyes met his. "I know their ships. I know their shadow. They are searching. They will not stop." The weight of her words pressed heavily on Ethan. He glanced again at the shadow above. its movement slow, deliberate, like a predator circling prey. A sick chill crept down his spine. "What happens if they catch you?" he asked, though part of him already knew the answer. Lyra's throat tightened as she forced the words out. "They will kill me slowly as an example, and they will punish your world and for helping me." Silence filled the room, broken only by the crackle of the fire. Ethan felt his chest tighten. His house had always been a shelter, a safe place where the outside world could not touch him. But now the danger was no longer at the edge of imagination. It was above them in the sky, watching. Lyra's hands clutched the blanket tightly. She shook her head, tears sliding down her glowing cheeks. "I should never have come here. I have brought danger to your kind. If they see me with you, they will believe Earth is guilty of hiding me. They will destroy everything." Her words stabbed him, but Ethan leaned forward, his voice firm despite his own fear. "You came here for hope, for freedom. Don't blame yourself for wanting to live." She looked at him, her expression filled with anguish. "But hope can cost lives, Ethan. Entire worlds have burned for less." His heart pounded, yet he did not look away. "Then let them come. I won't hand you over. Not now. Not ever." Her lips parted in shock. For a moment, her fear softened into something else, something closer to disbelief, maybe even a fragile spark of trust. Outside, the shadow drifted away into the distance, swallowed by the clouds. But Ethan knew it was only the beginning. They would return. They would search again. The firelight flickered across Lyra's silver skin as she whispered, almost to herself, "Why do you care so much?" Ethan swallowed the lump in his throat. He didn't have a perfect answer, but in his chest the truth felt clear. He had been invisible for so long, living a life without meaning. Now, for the first time, someone needed him, and that made all the difference. He met her eyes and said, quietly, "Because no one else ever cared when I needed help. I know what that feels like. I won't let you feel it again." The room fell silent once more. Lyra wiped her tears with shaky hands, her body still trembling, but a small, fragile flame of hope glimmered in her gaze. Outside, the night remained heavy with shadows. But inside Ethan's house, two souls, one human, one alien, sat together, bound by something stronger than fear. And though danger loomed closer than ever, for the first time, neither of them felt completely alone. The night after the shadow passed over the forest, Ethan could feel the weight of fear hanging in his house like a storm that refused to leave. Lyra did not sleep. She sat by the window, her glowing eyes staring out into the endless dark. Her hands were wrapped tightly in the blanket, her body trembling every time she thought she heard a distant hum in the air. Ethan tried to sleep, but he could not. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that massive shadow in the sky, hunting silently above the trees. He tossed, turned, then finally rose and walked into the living room. She was still there, her silver skin dim under the faint light of the fire. Her eyes shifted toward him when he entered, filled with sorrow and fear. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice so soft it almost broke, "if they come, you must give me up." The words cut through him like a knife. He stood frozen, unable to believe what he had just heard. "What?" "No," he said quickly, his voice sharper than he intended. "Don't say that." But she did not stop. Her tears glistened in her glowing eyes as she leaned forward, gripping the edge of the blanket like a lifeline. "You don't understand. If they find me here, they will not only take me, they will punish you. They will punish your people. Your world is not ready for them. You cannot fight them. They will destroy everything." Her words tumbled out like rain, her voice rising with every sentence, filled with a pain that shook Ethan's chest. "I cannot let Earth suffer because of me," she said, her voice breaking. "I would rather return, even if it means death. At least then, your kind will be safe." Ethan's fists clenched at his sides. His heart pounded so loudly he could barely think. "You want me to just hand you over to be tortured? To be killed?" His voice cracked with anger and disbelief. "Do you hear yourself?" Lyra's lips trembled, Her tears slipped down her face, glowing faintly like drops of liquid light. Ethan, I have seen entire colonies burned. I have seen my people dragged, back beaten until nothing was left. If they come here and see I'm protected, they will unleash the same fate on your kind. Please, please do not fight for me. You must give me up. The desperation in her words shook him to the core. She wasn't asking to be saved. She was begging to be sacrificed. Ethan's chest ached as he stepped closer. He knelt before her, his voice steady but heavy with emotion. Listen to me, Lyra. You came here because you heard hope in our music, because you believed maybe humans would be different. Her wide eyes met his, shining with sorrow. You were right, he continued, his voice stronger now. We are different, and I will not let them take you. Not while I'm alive. Do you hear me? I won't. She shook her head, choking on her words. But you cannot stand against them. You are only one man. You will die. Ethan's hand tightened, on the blanket near hers. Maybe I'm only one man. But if no one stands for what is right, then what are we even worth? If I betray you just to save myself, then I'll already be dead inside. Her tears flowed faster. She had no answer for his words. For the first time in her life, someone had not only refused to give her up, but had declared that she was worth. Fighting for Ethan's voice softened. You don't get to decide that your life isn't worth saving. That's not your choice anymore. You came here for hope. Let me be that hope. Lyra covered her face with her hands, her body trembling, with sobs. But they weren't only sobs of fear. They carried something else too. Relief. Slowly she lowered her hands, her voice barely a whisper. Why would you risk so much for me? I am not even human. Ethan looked at her, his eyes steady, his chest heavy with truth. Because you're alive, because you deserve freedom, because no one should ever have to beg to be treated like more than property. For a long time she said nothing. She just stared at him, her galaxy-filled eyes wide with disbelief. Then very softly she reached out, her trembling fingers brushing his hand. Her voice was fragile, like glass about to break. No one has ever spoken for me before. Ethan held her gaze. Then let me be the first. The firelight flickered around them, and though the night outside was heavy with shadows, inside the little house, something stronger than fear was born. Something that bound them together with invisible threads. The promise that for once, she would not face the hunters alone. The night they came, the forest did not feel like the forest anymore. The air grew heavy, humming with an unnatural sound that made the ground tremble. Ethan stood at his front door staring into the darkness, his fists clenched even though fear rushed through his veins like fire. Beside him, Lyra's body glowed faintly, trembling as though every part of her wanted to collapse. Please, she whispered, her voice sharp with panic. Do not fight them. You cannot win. Ethan looked at her, his jaw tight. I don't care if I can't win, you're not theirs anymore. Before she could answer, the treetops lit with blinding light. A massive ship descended into the clearing beyond the woods. Its body shimmered like black steel, silent and merciless, larger than any human aircraft Ethan had ever seen. The ground shook as it lowered itself, its shadow swallowing the moonlight. Ethan's heart hammered. He could hear metal groaning, engines humming like thunder. From the ship figures emerged. Tall, armored beings stepped into the clearing, their sharp faces gleaming under their helmets, their weapons glowing with unnatural energy. The leader walked ahead, towering and cold, his eyes glinting with cruel amusement. His voice carried like a blade across the air. Human, he called out, his tone deep and merciless. You harbor property that belongs to us. Return her, and we will spare your world. Refuse, and you will see how quickly we turn this soil to ash. Lyra gasped beside him. She clutched Ethan's arm desperately, her whole body shaking. Please, Ethan, she begged, her voice breaking. Do as they say. Don't risk your people. But Ethan's legs, though trembling, did not move backward. He took one step forward, his voice unsteady but loud enough to be heard. "She's not your property," he said, the words almost burning his throat. "She's a person, and she stays here." The aliens froze for a moment, as if shocked that a human dared speak to them in such a way. Then the leader let out a hiss, sharp and cruel. "You dare defy us? You, a fragile creature of dirt and bone?" His laughter was bitter, like iron scraping against stone. "You think your defiance matters?" Ethan's knees shook, but he stood his ground. He had spent years thinking he was invisible, that his life had no meaning. But now, facing creatures far stronger than him, he felt more alive than ever. Lyra clung to him, tears streaming down her glowing face. "They will kill you," she whispered. "They will kill us both." But Ethan shook his head. "Then let them try." The leader's face twisted with rage. He raised a hand, and one of his soldiers stepped forward, pointing a weapon at Ethan. A beam of light began to charge at its tip, humming with deadly energy. Ethan's chest tightened. He was unarmed, powerless. His body screamed at him to run, but he didn't move. He closed his eyes for a moment, ready for the end. And then, something unexpected happened. The ship above flickered. The low hum of its engines faltered. Strange echoes filled the clearing. It was faint at first, but Ethan recognized it. Music. From the nearby broadcast tower on the hill, a song drifted into the night. Human music, old and gentle, carried on the air like a forgotten prayer. The same kind of sound that had brought Lyra to Earth in the first place. The aliens faltered. Their weapons shook slightly, their eyes narrowing with unease as the melody reached them. Ethan's breath caught. The music wasn't planned. It was pure coincidence, or maybe fate. A local radio station had chosen that moment to play a song, and now its sound was flooding the air, cutting through fear like a blade of light. Lyra stepped forward, her body glowing brighter with every note. The music seemed to strengthen her, filling her with something she had long forgotten: courage. Her voice rang out, clear and trembling but strong. "I am not your slave anymore," she said, her words carrying across the clearing. "I will not return to chains. Not now. Not ever." The leader snarled, his weapon rising, but Ethan moved in front of her, spreading his arms wide. His heart thundered, but his voice did not break. "If you want her," he shouted, "you'll have to go through me." For a moment, time froze. The aliens, towering and armed, faced a single human with nothing but his will. It should have been laughable. Yet the music swelled, the glow of Lyra's body brightened, and in that moment, even the hunters seemed unsure. They had faced rebellions before. They had crushed colonies. But never had they seen such fragile creatures, human and alien, stand together with such defiance. The leader's eyes narrowed. He hissed to his soldiers, lowering his weapon but not his hatred. "This is not over," he spat. "We will return, and when we do, your world will regret its arrogance." With a sharp gesture, he turned. The soldiers retreated. The ship's engines roared, light swallowing the clearing, and then it rose into the sky, vanishing into the clouds. Silence fell. The forest was still again. Ethan's knees buckled. He fell to the ground, gasping, his body trembling from the weight of what had just happened. Lyra dropped beside him, her hands gripping his shoulders, her tears spilling freely. "You stood against them," she whispered in disbelief. "You stood against them for me." Ethan met her eyes, his breath ragged but steady. "You're worth it." For a long moment, they stayed there, wrapped in the quiet night, as the last notes of human music faded into the stars.